So it is not a night out with friends. It is not a one-night stand that seems out of character. It is not a extra confident day or a one night of sleeplessness. It is a pattern of behavior that is inconsistent with how that person has been their entire life. I did not know this, but there are several types of bipolar. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1, and bipolar 1 is characterized by mania, which is when the symptoms of hypomania become dangerous and become destructive. We hear over and over, oh, she's bipolar, or oh my gosh, she must be bipolar. Well, would you say that about people who have cancer? When you see someone who has had cancer treatment and has no hair, oh, she must be cancer. Oh, she is cancer. No, you don't identify the person with the illness. You see the illness as something that they are handling and taking care of and doing everything they can to control it so that they can continue on living a normal and happy and healthy life. And this is the same thing. So in the same way, you don't say, oh, she's diabetes. No, she has diabetes and this person has cancer. And in the same way, I am not bipolar. It is not who I am. It is not all of me. It is not my identity. It is something I have. It's something that I manage, and it's something that I don't let control my identity.
It is a non-discriminatory disease. It strikes people of every walk of life.
As we all know, Alzheimer's manifests in later life. Most people start to have dementia in older age, and we've all accepted that. We know that, and we haven't seemed to accept, though, that bipolar tends to manifest for the very first time between the ages of 18 and 24. The symptoms and the behaviors are very similar to a traditional college experience.
What is challenging is that these symptoms creep up in situations that are pseudo-normal. So you're at college, you're going out, or staying out late, you're not sleeping, and that becomes one night, and then 2 nights, and then 3 nights, and then your brain's not making dopamine, which it needs to make, and then you are stressed about a test, and then you have an energy drink, which is a known trigger, and then all of these things can compile, and it triggers what is already genetically in your code.
The triggers are lack of sleep, excessive caffeine, irregular schedule, extreme stress, which are all extremely prevalent in college. I think all of us can identify that we've met those criteria at some point.
We didn't have a hard upbringing. We had a great childhood, and she was involved in everything, anything and everything, captain of everything, president of everything. So when it happened, everyone was just kind of rocked. It rocked our world. She had all of these things in place that you just wouldn't think she would struggle with that, and she did.
All through school, I was in all advanced classes. I was on the president's honor roll. I was a junior class president and student council, varsity cheer, varsity drama, varsity tennis, extremely high achiever. And that's kind of the world that I lived in. I transitioned to Oklahoma State and took on a lot of leadership roles. I was a student government senator. I started out in freshman representative council. I was house manager of my sorority. I became president of ECO OSU while I was there, VP of operations for Entrepreneurship Club. So I always sought out these leadership positions.
I've always looked up to her. She's my older sister. And I think that's natural to do. But then it's like, as I've gotten older, I've realized that she has this deep desire to do the next right thing and whatever that looks like. And I think that has grown of admiration for me.
I was the last person anyone could imagine this may happen to. And I really think that that's why it was so hard for me to accept, certainly, because I had this stigma in my head that only happens to people who have been traumatized, or that only happens to people who clearly didn't have, a great family like I had. And I had this stigma in my head, my own head, that it couldn't happen to me. And it did. And I'm still honestly shocked that it did.
The tricky thing with bipolar is that it's who you are, but it is amped up to the point of unhealthy. So if you are bold, you are obnoxious. I mean, if you are this, then you are way over the thing. So when, Brittany in college, legitimately president of all of these clubs. I mean, she did the work, earned it, worked hard, was a definite leader. So when this boldness started creeping up, we thought, okay, this is just part of who she's becoming. And when she started saying things based on her laurels, we're like, oh, well, okay, I'm gonna go talk to so-and-so. We're like, wow, great, because all we'd ever known is, that she had excelled. So it is incredibly confusing.
So my whole fourth year, I was all focused on school, so much to the point that I didn't go out with my friends. I spent the nights studying and learning, and I was done by Tuesday of finals week. And that week before that, I had broken up with my boyfriend of 2 years. I had this newfound sense of freedom that I hadn't had in 2 years. I went out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and I had not gone to a bar in months. Now we can look back and see that those 5 nights I went out in a row is what triggered the hypomania.
Hypomania is the area in which people still function. They are able to lead a life. It's a precursor to mania. You can stay in hypomania. It's not healthy. It's a struggle. I mean, we're not designed to live at a revved up rate 24 hours a day.
The hypomania is the part people chase. It's the part people want to bottle up and keep forever. Part of the brain that triggers awareness literally turns off when you flip into hypomania. And it's euphoric. I mean, you feel better than you've ever felt, and it's just happening naturally. Okay, I'm becoming who I'm supposed to be. Like, this is wonderful. It was just the most bizarre thing to hear my family, who's always been extremely supportive, start to say that these things that felt so good were sickness.
Yeah, well, the whole time you're thinking, I don't like any of this. I want to be close to her and help her. Plus, they're your child. I mean, you want to help them, protect them, be with them. It's just the weirdest thing.
So I accepted this internship in Boston. This energized confidence had already started. And because I was in Boston with no one who knew me, I got to basically be whoever I wanted to.
When you hear people say it flipped into mania, it has just progressed to where full-blown mania is not sleeping, unable to take care of yourself, your personal hygiene and all of, the list of bipolar qualities. It's that shift from I'm still able to function on a daily basis to I need outside care.
My siblings and my stepdad and my mom came to visit for 3 days, and every night they were there, I left dinner with them and went to a bar by myself, completely by myself, and partied all night. And all 3 nights I went home with a different person, and I would wake up the next morning and meet my family for breakfast. That was also the weekend that my brain started moving, not just fast, but almost too fast, where I couldn't keep up. Those hypomanic symptoms really shifted into becoming destructive and counterproductive and unmanageable and uncontrollable. And now we can see that that's the weekend the hypomania flipped into full-blown mania.
I don't think I was privy enough to mental health to be able to actually pick up on anything, but I knew something was off and something was different.
Your senses are in overdrive. So where you may think something looks pretty, you suddenly think it is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. Your emotions are so intense and unwarranted.
It's so funny because you can look back with all the information that I know now, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I saw everything. I saw every sign that you need to see to be able to be like, she has bipolar 1. But I just didn't know that. I didn't know that, because how could you?
So I moved from Boston back to Stillwater, and it was about a week and a half into that semester that I had what we now know was my first psychotic break. I suddenly thought that I had to save the world. And I came up with this whole plan by drawing it all over my friend's apartment walls.
And I think it's interesting hearing Brittany talk about it, because when she was manic, she thought she was going to save the world. And our parents have always told us that we can save the world if we want to, and if we have a desire to, or we can change the world. Even from early childhood, we knew that they were on our team. There was never a moment where I was like, they are not fighting for me, they are not fighting with me. I always was like, even when I was getting disciplined by them, I was like, they're for me, and I know that, because they've never shown me anything other than that. And I think that when Brittany was manic and thought that she was going to save the world and was sent to save the world, she trusted that my parents would help her do that, because they've always said that they would. And so even in that, she was trusting that they would come and help her save the world. That then invited them into that. And so she no longer was hiding things from them. She wanted them to be a part of that because she trusted that they would help her.
I was going to a bipolar caretaker forum every week, and they were talking about Minigers in Houston. That was a complete care facility. And I had mentioned it to Brittany and said, you know, they take care of everything, you know, your brain, your body, all of it. When she was in crisis, I said, let's, you know, how about just going to Minigers and let's see. And she agreed, so we left in the middle of the night. She was, you know, incredibly agitated and nervous and, you know, shaking and couldn't sit still, and because it's all this pent-up energy.
And once we got on the airplane, I started noticing people falling asleep, but I thought they were pumping something into the airplane and making all of the caretakers fall asleep so that all of the special people like me could get up and talk and meet.
I had not slept in, you know, that whole night before, and I was exhausted and scared, so I leaned my head against the window. And I just thought, I'm just gonna shut my eyes. And I opened my eyes, and Brittany had a tall boy beer. This is 10 a.m. in the morning. Tall boy beer, and just chugged it.
I had my iPod in, and my iPod started dying again. And I had been studying solar power and waste on the earth. And I also wasn't taking care of myself. So one thing to go is your hygiene. Because you forget to take a shower, because your mind is moving so quickly, you forget about the basic needs. And so my face was extremely broken out, and I had these like big, almost like cystic acne spots on my face. And in that moment, I thought that those were like pools of energy.
And she had a napkin that she had written on, and she had her hair all up. You know, her hair was still crazy. And she put a napkin on it. She had a pencil through her hair, and she put a napkin on her head.
I put my hair in a bun as my antenna, and I pulled all my jewelry off, and I put it in my hair, and then I attached my iPod to my hair. And then I started pushing all of the knots on my face to push the energy to my iPod. Also, the airline had these napkins that had a map of the United States and all of their flight paths. And I thought, oh, that will harness the energy of the entire nation. So I put a stack of napkins on the top of my head. And then I started pushing on my face. The feeling, it became so intense that I went to the restroom.
She was in there a long time, went on and on. And then I heard all of this banging and yelling. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is what's happening now?
And then I thought about all of the waste on the earth. So I pulled all of the toilet paper out and I flushed it down the toilet, because in my mind, I was going to create a trail of waste down to the landfills. I would pull that energy up to the airplane, into my hair. And because we were so much closer to the sun, we could solar power my iPod back. And it was completely logical and possible in my mind.
The stewardess came over and said, your daughter's in the restroom and I can't get her to come out. And if she doesn't come out, we're gonna have to take the door off.
I felt like this has to be done right now. I'm the only one to do it. And if I don't do it, I'm failing humanity. But I didn't know how to do it.
So I went back. I mean, it was like, there was I don't know, maybe 10 feet. So I said, Brittany, you gotta come out. And she said, I'm not. So they physically took the door off of the airplane.
And I also had in my mind that I know that this is wrong. I know that I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but it's worth it. This breakthrough is worth it.
And took off running down the middle of the aisle, screaming at the top of our lungs, we're all okay, you're gonna be okay, it's fine. You can imagine the people that were in the plane, or the boy next to me was crying. I mean, it was a horrific thing to put people through. And I remember her at the front of the plane, and there was this steward with blonde hair. He was on the microphone saying, please stay calm. This is an isolated incident. We have somebody here that's in distress. We are taking care of that. And Brittany was trying to get the microphone because she wanted to make an announcement about the sun and solar power. And she was she was fighting him to get to the microphone.
And then he whipped me around and pulled my hands above my head, and I think he stepped on my feet so that I couldn't move. And I just screamed to the airplane, to the passengers.
So we were landing and they asked everybody to face forward with their heads down. It makes me cry. Oh. And they asked us to get out first. And he walked with Brittany, and halfway down the aisle, she just took off running. And what I will always remember is when I was walking out of the plane, this lady reached over and she just kind of patted my hand like, you're gonna, I don't know, she probably could relate.
We were up at the tarmac, and I ran to the tarmac, to the door, to the airport. And I was so rambunctious. I had so much energy I could not contain, and I was so mad.
She opened the door, we walked out. The Houston Police Department was there. Southwest Airlines had made a big circle so that people couldn't get in or see anything that was gonna happen. Brittany walked out, started looking around. She was looking for a place to run, I believe. And the paramedics were there. And I said, I'm trying to get her to Miniger's clinic. I am new to this. I have no idea what to do.
And so they pulled a police car to the tarmac, and they started carrying me down to the police car.
They knew exactly what they were doing. So the police officer that I was talking to said, well, how about I take you in my car?
And at that point, I thought that it was a military test. And I thought that I had to get out of the handcuffs and get out of the hogtie, and I had to get out of the car.
You can't unlock the doors. And Brittany was trying to open the door with her mouth because her hands were still tied and her feet were still zip tied.
And if it had been any other car besides a cop car, I would have been able to get out and jumped out. So I walked into the hospital, and I was still extremely acutely manic, and they came in and diagnosed me with acute psychotic mania and immediately put me on medicine. I was there for 2 weeks. They did every physical exam that you can do. They did every psychological exam you can do. And then at that hospital, They sit down together with you, with your neurologist, psychologist, psychiatrist, caseworker, and your family and a nurse, and you come up with a plan together. And while I was there, we determined that it would be the best course of action to withdraw from school.
She's a go-getter and wants to be, the top of everything, leader of everything. So taking a semester off was terrifying for her and would be terrifying for me, and I think would be terrifying for any of us, because we have in our brain of what college is supposed to look like, and it's supposed to look like 4 years, and you're supposed to graduate and get a full-time job and all of these things, and she had to take a break. But I think in that, just seeing someone prioritize health and say, hey, I have to get my mind right, and I'm not in a place to do that, and emailing her professors from Houston and saying, hey, this is the situation, I'm gonna be back better than ever.
And the combination of the medicine adjusting my chemicals to regain perspective in order to see it for what it was a milestone that some people don't get to. And for me, it was because of a promise I made to my mom. But after 10 weeks of being on the medicine, I stopped taking them because of a promise I made to my mom, and I started taking them because I didn't want to go back to it anymore. And I could see it as what it was, which was extremely dangerous, and that I got lucky beyond measure, and I didn't ever want to go back. She fought for me. She chose to see, She chose to see the disease outside of me.
I always knew that what the actions that Brittany had were not really her. And to separate that, then I can be angry at the disease. I can be angry that this is happening. I can be confused, but I wasn't that at Brittany.
The most critical piece is realizing that your brain is an organ, just like any other organ in the body, and some brains get sick. So once I identified as having bipolar versus being bipolar, I was able to treat it as an illness and not treat it as everything that I am and everything that I will always be. That perspective changed everything for me, and it took away the shame portion of it. I take 6 medicines a day, and I am fine with that, because who cares? I may take medicine for the rest of my life, but I'll also likely be living my best life for the rest of my life. The biggest tool for me has been releasing the secrecy, because shame lives in the dark. And when you bring those things into the light, they become a lot less scary and they become manageable. Consider if you walk into a room and it's dark, you can't see the path. But when you turn the light on, you can at least see the obstacles, and you can at least see what to avoid and where to go to get to the other side. But when you keep that light off and you don't let other people in, and you don't share what's going on, shame breeds and you lose your control. Turning the lights on, pulling things into the light, takes away that power over you.
The cruelty, I don't think there's a better word for it than that. The cruelty of bipolar disease is that your brain is telling you that everything is great, that it is euphoric, and there are no issues. And who in this world does not want to feel that way on a daily basis?
I remember starting the medicine and being so scared that I would never feel the height of that euphoria again, and the intense joy that comes from being manic. And I told my mom that, and she said,
I knew with every part of my being that she would. I know how I felt when I had my children. I knew that there would be times, and it would not be all the time, there would just be moments of utter joy. They may be glimpses, but that feeling is not gone forever.
You will feel that again, but now it will be true, and it will be real, and you will be able to share it with people around you. Because when you are isolated in that type of euphoria, there is no one else that feels that way that you can share that with. So while I may never feel uncontrollably joyful, I will feel true joy based in reality, and I can share in that same level of joy with the people around me. I never made the choice to have this, but the choice I do get is to manage it with the resources that I have available to me. I feel solely responsible for making sure my brain, I do everything I can to make sure my brain doesn't allow me to do that again, in order to protect myself and what I've built and the people that are around me. I think I will forever feel scared when I feel extremely happy or when I feel extremely sad. But the difference now is that I know what manic feels like, and the people around me knows what it looks like, and we're prepared now, and we're not scared of it like we were when we didn't know what it was.